based on my job that is doing, it has to do with like intercultural management, intercultural communication services and training. What I decided to do is just give some tips for internationalization in what is now called like post-COVID times. And there is a lot of like discussion, a lot of like insights on how it will be. So this is also the idea, try to like share with you some tips that can be useful. I would say the first tip is that we need to change our mindset, to go through a change in our mindset. If you were born, let's say, in the 80s or before, maybe also beginning of the 90s, you know what is this object on the left. But the interesting of this product is that when it started, when it was like, it was created in Asia and in Southeast Asia, the idea was I listen to my music and so I don't disturb the others. Well, when the same product was adopted in the US, it was, I can listen to my music without being disturbed by the other. So it was the same product, but it was a different mentality. And so also the advertisement was different. In one case, like Asia and Asian culture, the idea is to preserve the harmony. It's a more collectivistic society. In the US, it's more an individualistic society, in an individualistic approach. So it's myself, my music, I don't want the other to disturb me. So now, with the COVID, we have facing this through all this month with the idea of the mask. Because again, we used to see a lot of like Southeast Asian, Chinese or Japanese coming to like Western Europe or Europe wearing the mask. And for them was normal. And the idea was, we are wearing the mask because I'm sick and I want to protect the other. Now we are asking to use the mask, and it's difficult for us as a European or like Western European, so a different culture, because in a more individualistic society, the idea is I'm not afraid of getting sick. So we need to go through a change of mentality, a change of mindset, because now we have been asked to actually change our mindset, and so start to thinking. So our use of the mask is actually not for ourselves or not to protect ourselves, but to protect the others. And this is something that is such small as the mask, but is actually something that imply a change of mindset, and is also actually something that probably we will see not only related to something small at the mask, but we will apply to other different like contexts or organization or like scenarios that we will face. The second tips that, and again, we know that there are a lot of discussions about this, a lot of debate, a lot of useful insights, the adaptation skills. And here, I want to use the example of the Cirque du Soleil that maybe you are familiar with. I really love the Cirque du Soleil, and I think that if you have read the book Blue Ocean, this is one of the examples of the book. So what the Cirque du Soleil did in a time where the circus industry was in crisis, there was a crisis, and also the idea was that traditional circus with the animals was actually in crisis, and then there was a lot of debate about using animals in circus. At the same time, the people that were not going to the theater anymore as before, they came up with this idea of a circus for adults people, and a different kind of events with some elements from the circus, but at the same time also taking something from like the theater. And they created Cirque du Soleil, that is one of the most successful, let's say, example of this kind of using and having joined together like circus elements, theater elements, sport. But what is interesting also for the Cirque du Soleil, that they're actually adapting their events to the different countries and the different contexts. And last year they came to Malta, and actually in Malta the theater was too small for most of their events. And so they decided to do something specifically for Malta, and it was Vittori, and they had in the beautiful Mediterranean Conference Center, but was small compared to the others Cirque du Soleil events. But the idea was, we want to come to Malta and we want to adapt our product, what we are offered to Malta and the Maltese scenario. So this is also what we are asking to do now in this post-COVID. So try to find and to adapt our business to the new scenario. And the idea can also be, we're going smaller, but maybe the idea is not that we are going smaller, but actually we are adapting our services to a specific niche or market. Or we are starting considering country or places that we haven't considered before. The tourism and the tourism industry, the idea is we will go in local. Probably it will take time for the tourism sector to come back to the level it was before. It will take time for the people to travel again, we were used before. So there is this idea of going local, adapt, change. And the same is requested for the business, but can also be requested as a marketing strategy for the business. The third tip is make the right investment. And I did some training during this lockdown to parents, and the training was about global kids. And they wanted to know how to help their kids to becoming global kids. And one of the tip was you should make the right investment, and the investment is also in the language. So if you don't know another language, start also maybe to take a course and start learning another language. But also, now that you cannot, as a business, you cannot travel like before, so you cannot meet in person your clients, your partners, a right investment is also use translation, interpretation, so to be able also really to sell across country and using the right words. So there's no time anymore for impro, because you will not be there in person to try to save any mistakes or misunderstandings. So the right investment is also to invest in the language, in the culture, and in the people. And I will come back on this. The investment in the people is also that we know in Malta, many companies, they have a multicultural workforce, but sometimes they're not using this multicultural workforce as a real competitive advantage. And the real competitive advantage is also not only that they are good because they are like skilled in what they do, but also because they can be this bridge to help you to start a business in their country, because they know the language, because they know the culture. And especially now, you need also this cultural mediator, because you cannot travel anymore. You cannot have in-person meeting in other countries. So you need to make the right investment in language, culture, and people. The third tip, and I know David will like this tip a lot, is do your research. And this is also, I would say, the power of BNI, because in one of our first online meeting, we had a visitor, a BNI member from South Africa, because she's selling rabbit meat. And she did a research, and she found out that Malta is actually one of the traditional Maltese food is rabbit. So she joined our meeting to promote her like rabbit meat. So try to sell rabbit in Malta. So also in this case, do your research, but also use the network available. There are a lot of network. BNI is one of these network, because also what is interesting in BNI is that we build trust. And so if you build trust, you know actually what to expect. So when she came, we were there ready to help her in a research to help her to start a business in Malta in this case. But also for your research, again, use if you have your multicultural workforce, because they can really help you to penetrate the new market, the new country, and they can also be the right people to trust for the locals there. tip number 5, have uncomfortable conversation. So, and this is like internally, if you have a team now working remotely, or is also externally with your client. So in intercultural communication and intercultural management, we know that even the question, how are you, is different across culture. So if an American say, how are you, maybe they don't actually want to know how are you. So the how are you is, how are you, I'm fine, fine. And then we go and we start talking about business. But then if you ask how are you to an Italian or to a Mexican, we start speaking about actually that we are fine and how our family, and maybe it was a beautiful sunny day. And if you're having a conversation across culture, maybe the person, your listener, the person you're speaking with, is not actually comfortable in you telling a lot about yourself because they just want to talk about the business. So these are already misunderstandings that can occur. But nowadays that everything is online, something is also changing across culture, and that it is that even if you have a conversation with a person from the US, they're asking how are you, and in this specific time they're actually interested in at least how your country is dealing with COVID-19. So there are a few more minutes or seconds that we spend around the how are you question. But then there is also a lot in the conversation that before, when we were in person, was body language, or the feelings that we were able to read through the air. Nowadays, this is not possible, especially because we are online. So it is important to explain what is going on in the conversation, and also to be ready to ask some questions if you're not sure, to rephrase, to send a written confirmation, or to ask for confirmation, and so to have this uncomfortable conversation, because there are elements in the conversation that you had before, or you were aware before when there was the in-person conversation, that now you cannot see anymore. And so there is more space for misunderstandings. So having this uncomfortable conversation is something that you can have internally with your team. And also I would say it's also important to set the rules of the team before. And also you can have with your clients. Tell me exactly what you were saying, what you were meaning from what you said. And in intercultural communication, for the one of you that are familiar, there is this idea of high context and low context cultures. The idea of the low context culture, they are the culture that they use a more direct communication, and they prefer also to have a written communication style, and trust is based on task and not a relationship. Now, in a team working remotely and a multicultural team, the suggestion is also try to use a low context communication style. So be direct in your communication, use written communication, send an agenda of the meeting before the meeting, and send also the points that you have discussed during the meeting, after the meeting. Keep track of everything. This is something, but also be ready to ask some uncomfortable questions. Try to be sure that actually what you have understood is what they were meaning. And then the last tip is build trust. So trust will be key from now on. And we know it's key because we have to trust our government, we have to trust our the people around us, if they are wearing the mask or if they are not wearing the mask, and we have to build trust in business relationship. This is why, especially in internationalization and working remotely, it's really important that the focus is on the person. And again, I already said that, but I think is the key, I would say, of this business briefing, and something that I want you to like take with you after this meeting, is really use your people to build trust across countries, because you cannot maybe reach this country, and even if you are an intercultural trainer and you think you know about the other cultures, in this time to build trust, it's also important that you kind of use the locals. So you build your network, you build the trust with your local networks, and you use your local networks or your multicultural workforce to reach that country, that culture, and build trust, even if online and working remotely. And then when there will be time again to, and we will be free to fly, you could meet this person, but the relationship was already built, and so then you can build based on something that is already there, and that you have also, let's say, cultivate in all this month. It's not that because you are not meeting in person anymore, you just stop that conversation or you just stop that relationship, especially because in some country that are more the Asian countries or the Arab countries, the Arab world, but also the Mediterranean countries, trust is based on relationships. So the more you spend time in building the relationships and you take care of the relationship, the more also the business will be affected and you will be successful in your business. These were some of the things I wanted to share with you today. And I think now we have more time for like Q&A or having an interesting discussion on this topic. Thank you. David, back to you. You're mute.
From all my personal experience of working in Africa and the Far East, it is so easy to make mistakes and to blow the whole thing when you go to a meeting if you don't understand the local culture. You don't stroke the head of the Buddha sitting on your colleague's desk, for example. You don't show the soles of your feet. All these little things are so important. And I do find that even just using a few words of Zulu, Shoshone, or whatever, people appreciate the fact and they're surprised that you know their native language and so on. It really is, I think, as you indicated, a question of putting yourself in the position of the other person, making them feel comfortable, making them feel appreciated and valued. And it's sad when people make a massive investment like flying to the far ends of the world and destroy it all because they haven't invested in the things you've been telling us to do. Incredibly valuable. And I see you've got quite a lot of panel of attendees there. So hopefully all of you who've been attending are taking away something that will be of real value to you if you implement it and take even just one or two of those tips. So thank you very much for that.
Thank you. I'm seeing in the chat that Carmel said great video, the one, because if I put one of the picture was actually a video that you can find on YouTube, and is the Italian man who went to Malta. And that is a funny video actually about like Italian accent and the misuse of some words, and then all the misunderstandings that are like created from that, like the use of some words and not the others. So yes, thank you, Carmen.
Excellent.
We still have time, like a few minutes. If there is any question or comment, you can type in the chat box. We have some attendee from India, Malta, Italy, and Switzerland. So thank you for joining us. Carmel, you raise your hand. Let me see if I can. Carmel, do you want to say something? I have to unmute you. Carmel, I think you can unmute yourself.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, basically to confirm what you have said regarding using the locals. You know, once I went to another country in the Mediterranean, thinking that being Mediterraneans and like us and the Europeans, they would operate you know, in the same business way as we do here in Malta. Actually, we were arrived on time for the appointment, and then my local colleague told me, let's stay in the car. I told him, you know, it's 9:30, the meeting is going to start. No, he said, let's stay in the car. And we stayed there. I said, why we're staying in the car when we're going to be late? He said, don't worry. If we arrive on time, he will instantly have a dislike for you because you are trying to make him work. So he said, let's wait 10-15 minutes. And then as we were walking towards the office, crossing the street and walking a little bit further down, he told me, don't start talking business immediately. Ask him about family, about his favorite sport, you know, let's spend 20 minutes, you know. I told him that's a waste of time. He said, no, that's an investment. So sometimes what we think are, you know, is a waste of time.
Yes.
In another country is actually, you know, and, you know, it's good to have a local to tell you all this. These things you don't find in textbooks, you don't find on YouTube, and you don't find anywhere. It's only a local, as you said, as you have rightly said, Viviana, it's only a local, a trusted local who can tell you uncomfortable things so that, you know, you don't take a false step. Thank you.
Yes, yes, thank you, Carmel. Actually, what you mentioned is also interesting because, yeah, there is this idea of like the Mediterranean countries, they're all the same, but actually, I would say, and I think David and also the other, let's say, foreigners living in Malta, they can confirm that Malta is really unique because, yes, it's a Mediterranean country, but with also like a strong British backbone due to its history. And so then if you go to another Mediterranean country, maybe you can find that there are differences actually. And what you just mentioned, I also found that in Malta, we go to like speak about business like faster than in Italy or other Mediterranean countries. And I would say because this is also the interesting mix that Malta is. But definitely, thank you for sharing. And then we have other two, I saw that there were two questions. One was the uncomfortable conversation. The idea of the uncomfortable conversation, and is something that is also mentioned in many, let's say, books and experiences in intercultural management. You also should be able to use humor and play with the humor. So if you can have this uncomfortable conversation with humor, that is actually the best way. And the uncomfortable conversation means that you should ask and also play with yourself. It's like, oh, no, so you're sending me the agenda because this is the way you do in your culture. So in our culture, this is not common, but I understand that now you're sending me the agenda, not because you don't trust me, because then trust is also the key. Sometimes, as Carmel mentioned, if you go on a meeting on time, it's saying that you want to force them to work. Or if you want, in some cultures, if you want to sign a contract like straight away, is like that you don't trust that they will do the business. While for other cultures, there is a contract is the first time. For again, from like more Anglo-Saxon countries, the contract is, let's say, the first step. For other cultures like the Arab cultures or the Chinese, the contract comes at the end, because before we build the trust, we build the relationship, and then at the end we share also maybe something about our family, about our personal life, and then at the end we sign the contract. So if you can explain what is going on, and so have these uncomfortable conversations. So we are signing the contract because in our culture we do like this, and you can also play with the humor. That is the best way, especially now that everything is like remotely and it is online, to avoid any misunderstandings. And you explain what is going on and why. And then I saw that there was another question. So reading about different cultures before meeting the clients. Yes. So I always say that you should be prepared to, this is not only across culture, but the more you can do your research, related also to the client and the culture of the client that you're going to meet, but also if you can collect information about that specific client. Because intercultural communication is not just that we want to put people in boxes and we say, all the American are like this, all the Italian are like this. We know that there is something that is cultural and can be influenced by the culture, but then there is also something else that maybe is based on the region where they are from, or the history of their family, or if they're coming from a urban area or a rural area. So the more information you can collect and the more information you can find on books, speaking with some locals, or using videos, like everything available, the more you are aware and prepared. But then the other important things in intercultural management and intercultural communication is to wait before judge anything. Because what you want to do is just collect all the information and collect the other perspective. You're just only seeing like one part, one side. You want to get also all the information on the other side when you meet the client. And then at the end, after having practiced what is called the active listening, maybe also you have had this uncomfortable conversation. And so only at that point, maybe you can make a judgment on what is really going on. But don't make assumption. And before even make a judgment, you have to collect all the information available. Okay, do we have another question? So I would say, so it's better to rely to mediators and cultural experts if you want to expand your business abroad. I would definitely say yes, because they can really help you to understand the culture, understand the steps that you need to make, and also they help you to be aware, and they also help you to maybe do your research in the best way as possible. And then, as also Carmel like confirm, if you can use the local and if you can use your multicultural workforce to get to the new market that you want to start, that it's even better if you have someone internally that can be your bridge to the other culture. How it is important the way we dress. So everything is important across culture, and this is why it's really important to like make your research. If you don't have the information and if you don't have any local, the best way is try to wait. In the case of the dress, like modesty is a value that is across culture, is more like is shared across like various culture. So if you wear like in a modest way, probably for a business meeting is okay in most of the countries around the world. But then what it is important is also if you go to a country and you're not sure if the person you're going to meet will be fine in shaking hands with you, you just wait and you let them to do the first move. Or also the way they are sitting around the table. If you're not sure who is going to sit where, you just wait and then you sit where they will ask you to sit. And then some customs, you don't find them in books. A trusted local can help much more, as he would already know all the secret path. Of course, a local would come with a cost, but if they are professional, it's really worth it. That's my experience. Thank you, Carmel. And then, isn't it risky to use humor with a foreigner? Don't we run the risk to be misunderstood? Yes, in fact, you should use humor about yourself. It's not self-deprecation, but it's a nice way to play with your culture and explain more what is going on there because of your, it's kind of, you admit your ignorance and that you are there to learn. So it's not self-deprecation, but it's like, I'm also here to learn from you because I want to do business for you. And the more I know you and the more I learn from you, we can then maybe have a successful business together. So this is the key of like playing with humor. And if you have this, the idea is to have this attitude of, I want to learn. I'm starting from a position that maybe I will do some mistakes because I don't know everything, but help me to understand your culture. Okay. And sorry, the last comment I might say is the same as being a client in a market. You are sometimes better accepted when discussing the price. If you accept too easily, it won't work as expected. Humor can help breaking the ice as well, and as you said, understand the culture a little more. Yes. Yes, exactly. Yes. Another aspect, Carmel, just another aspect are women, especially in Arab and Muslim countries. Yes, exactly. And this is why if you're not sure, because maybe you're not sure if the person that you're meeting is a Muslim, a Christian, there are like complex scenario like Lebanon or other countries where you don't know maybe what you are meeting. And so in that case, the best way is ask for help, ask for some guidance, or wait that they do the first if they go for shake hands, you go for shake hands, and then wear with modesty is also. I saw that there are like also someone that raise their hands. If you want to type, if you have any question in the chat box, or if it was the raise hands for agree or for say bye. And then maybe, David, we take the last like 2 questions and then you can wrap up.
Okay.
So, hi Viviana, thanks for your presentation. Question about tip 3, make the right investment. Is there research or facts on this return of investment related to cultural asset, like a way to monetize the benefits of this investment? Yeah, there is something, but I would say there is also a need to have more of this kind of research, because some of the research are more diversity is good to promote innovation, or they're more interviews with experts that they say that diversity it is important. There are also now more and more research about the waste of money, time, and resource if you don't have a successful relocation. So also for the relocation, what it is important in to be prepared to move to another country, because and I had a case in Malta. That person was coming from an Arab country. He was not prepared, and actually when he came, he found something that he didn't expect it, so he decided to go back to his country. And in that case was a waste of like money and investment for the company. So I would say that there is something, but we need more, and it's something that again I'd say we are aware in our field of interculturalist, and because then companies, they understand the language of the numbers. So if we can prove through the numbers that it is the right investment, and because we know that it is the right investment, but we need more numbers, I would say, to prove it. Okay. I don't know if Ravi has any question, or it was before. What do you advise about discussion on prices? Also, prices is interesting across culture, because there are cultures that they prefer, again, low contest direct communication, so that it's a price and that is there's no room for negotiation, while other country and cultures where negotiation is actually part of the business and part of the process. So also in this case, it's better that you understand the culture and the culture of your client, so you know if they want to learn about the price the first time you meet them, and that price will be the same and they don't want to make any adjustment, or that the price is just, let's say, the start of a dance around the price. And then for these cultures especially is again linked to the building of relationship, because the more you build a relationship and the more they trust you, they can also already do, I would say, pay more, of course, maybe and really depend on the case, but because they got the value that is also that they are not just buying today from you, but the relationship that they have built with you, they will be your clients for more time because of the relationship that you had built with them. So maybe you're ready to like lower the price because you want to keep this relationship with them, or they are ready to pay you more because they want to keep this relationship with you. And these are the culture that value more the relationship and the trust based on relationship. Okay, thank you, and like feel free to get in touch if you have any other question. But the idea of this like business briefing was just to give you some tips that I give again. So thank you.
Well, Viviana, I thank you so much for that. I feel so wise and yet so young, but somehow you need to invest in the kind of things that you've talked about. Can I just give to your attendees a couple of examples of elephant traps, if you like? Just very quickly, for a few seconds, can I ask them all to close their eyes? If you close your eyes and come on a journey with me to Singapore. We go off to Singapore, it's very hot, it's very humid, and you go into a very important meeting, and the well-mannered Chinese host offers you a cool drink, and it's brought and put in front of you, and there's some ice in it, and you see the condensation forming on the glass, and you're very thirsty, and you reach forward, you take a drink, and you've blown it. You've blown it because it was very polite of him to treat you as an honored guest and organize little things like a cold drink. But you should have waited for however long it took, even an hour or so, until he said, Silicon Mumum, would you like to drink? But you have to wait for that courtesy. And another trap easily is you exchange business cards with a Japanese. You realize that you could help him do some business, and you say you'd like to meet again, and you have some thoughts you'd like to give him. And you start writing on his card. And again, you've blown it because you'll think that was very sensitive. Although he's given you the card, it was his card. And all you have to do is say, gosh, that's interesting. Can I write on your card? And he will say, of course you can, son. But those little courtesies are so important. As Carmel said, find a good local. You can lose so much if you don't have that sensory acuity. You can gain so much if you invest in the experience and wisdom that you and people doing what you do can give to them. So Viviana, thank you very much indeed for that. And I'm sure we'll have you back by popular request. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you also again, Paula, for the translation. And we're also recording the webinar, so then will be available on BNI University. We're trying to be there.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you again, and have a nice afternoon. We're closing the meeting. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Bye, Viviana.